take money out of a retirement account and put it into an annuity. Have an annuity in a retirement account, which makes absolutely no sense, because a retirement account is a tax-deferred vehicle, and you're putting a tax-deferred instrument in a tax-deferred vehicle. Makes absolutely no sense at all, but yet we see it time and time again. So what can you folks do? We're here today to talk about things that you could do to protect yourself. What can you do? Well, one of the most important things you can do is how to choose a broker or investment advisor. Most people don't know this, but there's information that's publicly available from the NASD, which is now called FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, where you can actually go onto the internet. If you don't want to go on, you can actually call an 800 number, and you can find out how many times your broker has been subject to customer-initiated investment-related complaints. What is that broker's track record in terms of litigation, complaints, arrests, bankruptcy? You would be surprised the number of licensed brokers that are out there who've had felony arrests for drugs, arrests for theft by deception, who are bankrupt, who fail to pay child support, who have unsatisfied tax liens, or have countless, not one customer complaint, not two customer complaints, but sometimes we've seen cases where brokers have had up to 10 customer complaints, and yet they work at the big firm, and the big firm's reluctant to do anything about it because they're bringing in commission dollars. So before you invest with a particular broker, the easiest thing you can do is investigate. Find out about that person. Ask them questions. There's a common questions to ask a broker before you invest with that person. Be certain as to what your investment objectives are, and be certain to ask about risk. There's a duty for the broker to describe the risk to you, but most people don't ask. Most people say, well, they go into their broker, and the broker says, I can get you 12% a year or 10% a year return on your investments. And then the broker uses that as a rationalization to accept additional risk. Because to get those sort of returns, you might have to be able to experience a 30–40% decline in the value of your securities in bad times, like we've seen in 2000 and 2001, in order to get those higher yields. There's a relationship between risk and return. So when someone's promising you a certain return, be careful. Don't be afraid to ask about risk, because that's the most important thing. Which is more important, making $10,000 or losing $10,000? If the answer is losing $10,000, be careful about risk. Now, I've also listed some common mistakes that we've seen over the years that investors make. One of the most common mistakes we see is they fail to complete the forms. When you open a brokerage account, they give you new account forms, and typically the broker puts the forms in front of you and says, sign this, sign that, I'll fill out the rest. And later on, years later, after they have a claim, after they lose money or the broker acts inappropriately, we get those forms in discovery. We have the right to obtain those forms in our litigation. And what do we see? The investment objective is checked as aggressive. The 65-year-old person who has $500,000 on the planet, they're listed as being speculators, okay? And the customer doesn't get a copy of the form, which later the broker completes and puts down information to make it seem that they're willing to take more risk than they really should take in an effort to insulate themselves from liability. So number one, always complete the forms yourself. Never leave certain questions about your investment objective, your risk tolerance, never leave those blank. Make sure they're filled in. Fill them out with your broker, but make sure you fill them out together. And most importantly, get a copy of anything that you sign. The second most important thing is to read your documents. There's an old adage in this business: the broker-dealer has a duty, the investment firm has a duty to send you your customer statements in the mail. But they don't have a duty to come to your house and help you read them. So you really have to be careful. When you get documents in the mail, when you get confirmations in the mail, read them. When you get your customer statements in the mail, read them. If you don't understand them, call somebody. Call the broker. If you don't get a satisfactory answer, call the manager. But never let something happen that you don't understand. So read